How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're going to focus on our next potentially major snowstorm pattern that could build throughout the eastern half of the United States as we approach the middle to late December time period. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the GFS model, and as you've been seeing over the past several weeks, I'd say, we have been seeing a multitude of snowstorms move through the western half of the United States, and now we're gonna see heavy snow extend even as far south as California and Nevada, where we're seeing the trough move just south enough to bring some precipitation further southward. And of course, many of the same areas will still receive heavy snowfall right around the Pacific Northwest. However, when we take a look at the eastern half of the United States, many places still haven't received that very significant snowstorm just yet, as so far it seems like the jet stream been a little bit too far north to allow for the temperature to get cold enough for, of course, a significant snowstorm to occur. So as a result, snow has primarily been absent, at least for the early part of the winter season. Of course, the astronomical start of winter starts December 21st, but really for the Northeast, you typically do experience your first snowfall right around late November or very early in December. And it seems like we're not really going to get any sort of snow during either time period, even as we approach the early part of December, where we do see the jet stream is just a little bit too far north for the cold air to overlap where all the moisture is for any snowfall to occur, as the snow is pretty much stationed just to the north of the United States-Canadian border. However, like you probably see in the title of this video, that's expected to change as we approach the middle December time period, where we're going to see a much more significant jet stream dip move through, as shown by the GFS model, where if I were to continue to move forward, we do see that associated with this trough that's going to move through, I'd say right around the Thursday time frame, December 8th, we're going to see strong northwesterly winds and an Arctic ridge move through. That's going to bring cooler temperatures to the northeast that will sort of build or set the conditions needed for a significant jet stream dip to occur, which would allow for a major Arctic outbreak to occur for the eastern half of the United States. And we see this trough linger for quite some time, bringing just strong enough northwesterly winds to see that jet stream really dig deep down into the south, where we do see the much colder than average conditions move through the northeast, as well as much of the eastern half of the United States, where you guys are experiencing cooler than average temperatures in this scenario. So that's something we're going to need to pay close attention to over the next several days. And while we don't necessarily see any sort of significant snowstorms associated with this Arctic blast, there's still, of course, a lot that could change. And of course, when we see a significant jet stream dip like this, it's more likely there's going to be a lot more instability to induce the possibility of a significant snowstorm threat. So I'd say, as a result of this Arctic blast that's expected to build around the eastern half of the United States, of course, what will come with it is the enhanced risk of snowstorms developing right around the eastern half of the United States. And while the GFS model doesn't depict it, there's certainly that possibility that it could happen. We just gotta have to wait and see how the computer models shift their forecast over the next several days, because it certainly is possible. Now, taking a look at the temperature anomalies to really give you guys a good idea of how powerful this polar vortex will be. So we do see that much of the Midwest is experiencing cooler than average conditions, and for a small period, the eastern half will experience cooler than average conditions as well. But that won't last long before we see the temperatures not only rebound back closer to average, but go well above average, where we're seeing temperature readings 10 to 15 to even 20 degrees above average as a result of this next trough moving through, bringing a strong southwesterly flow to bring those warmer temperatures further northward. But right behind it, we see very cool temperatures, as the conditions should mainly be inconsistent over the early December time period. But I wouldn't say it's, like I said, until the middle December time frame where we're really lean more towards cooler than average conditions, where of course we're going to see our first significant jet stream dip approach at least right around the mid-December timeframe, right around December 10th, where we're seeing temperature readings close to 20 degrees below average. And then we're going to see this cold air just continue for the eastern half of the United States, as you see in as we head further and further into the later into the later forecast depictions of the GFS model. We do see that the temperatures don't really rebound much at all around the eastern half of the United States, which is cementing the idea that we're more likely going to experience a prolonged period of much cooler than average conditions for the eastern half of the United States, and that will certainly enhance the risk of major snowstorms moving through as a result of a significant jet stream dip like this, as well as, of course, much more winter-like conditions where we're seeing temperatures this below average, where, of course, in many areas you should experience temperatures right around 5 to 10 degrees below average as a result of this polar vortex moving through. And the European model also agrees with this depiction as well. If we were to take a look at what the European model is forecasting when it comes to these next few troughs that are expecting to move through. And while, of course, the European model is very similar in regards to GFS, where the jet stream, at least during the early part of December, will still be a little bit too far north to bring that snow further southward, we still do see that eventually the European model is leaning more towards a significant jet stream dip, where who knows, maybe this low pressure right here could be our next significant snowstorm for the eastern half of the United States. That could include the Ohio River Valley or the Northeast. We're just gonna have to wait and see. But of course, we see a much more significant jet stream dip, and both of the computer models are agreeing that associated with this trough moving through right around the Wednesday time frame of December 7th, there's going to be a strong northerly flow that's going to push that cold air further southward. So I'd say the certainty is certainly high that we're going to see much colder than average conditions for the eastern half of the United States, and potentially warmer than average conditions along the west coast, as we're going to see sort of the temperature anomalies shift across from coast to coast in the United States. So that's something we're going to need to pay close attention to over the next several days. That both of the main computer models are expecting cooler than average conditions. Not really much of a difference compared to what we saw yesterday, though. However, I will say that as of today, the GFS model is a little bit more lenient on bringing a more significant jet stream dip. So I think that colder and snowier than average conditions going into the mid to late December timeframe is more likely than even compared to yesterday. Now, taking a look at what the CFS model is forecasting when it comes to temperature anomalies over the next few weeks. This CFS model is a climatology model that forecasts more in the long range future, and it's fairly reliable in doing that. And we do see that between the time period of December 21st and December 28th, we do see that much of the eastern half of the United States is experiencing cooler than average conditions, and the only exceptions to this cooler than average temperatures are located right around the west coast as well as the southern portion of Florida. But majority of the United States, as we approach the middle of December timeframe, is experiencing cooler than average conditions, more specifically the eastern half. So I do expect more snowstorms and Arctic outbreaks to move through the eastern half of the United States going into the mid to late December time period. And the CFS model is only giving that idea more confidence as we head into the middle of December time period. Now, taking a look at the Arctic Oscillation, another key factor in determining what type of temperatures you are bound to experience during the winter time, and we do see that a negative Arctic Oscillation is expected to build and peak right around the mid-December time period, where maybe it could rebound by the late December time period, but by the middle of December, the negative Arctic oscillation is expected to peak, which would promote more cooler than average conditions because, of course, during a negative Arctic oscillation, we see a weaker Bermuda Ridge and a weaker Greenland low, which does reduce the westerly winds, the westerly wind speed. So as a result, the cold air that's sort of trapped in the polar regions is more likely to move further southward, since the westerly winds are so weak, and they're so weak that they can't really trap all that cold air right around the polar region. So as a result, we see more cooler Arctic air move into the United States when the Arctic oscillation is at a negative phase, and that's what's expected by the mid-December time period. So this will only enhance the confidence that we're likely going to see cooler than average conditions as we approach a middle December time period. So just because it isn't very cold and snowy right now for a lot of you guys in the United States does not mean it'll continue. So make sure to pay close attention over the next several weeks, because before you know, we could maybe see our first significant snowstorm in our hands in the United States. Now, taking a look at my forecast regarding where exactly the worst of the cold and the Arctic outbreak should be. So, of course, the northern Midwest, this is where I expect the Arctic outbreaks to be the worst, and that could also be the area where you experience the most snowfall. And there's certainly that possibility along the East Coast as well. The temperatures will certainly drop for most of the United States, so the chance of snow will increase. So if you're into the snow, it might be good to get excited right around the mid to late December time period, because that's when that's pretty much a best possibility, at least within at least the short-term future, when in regards to the winter, when you could experience your first significant snowstorm. So make sure to at least stay tuned over the next several weeks, and I'll keep you guys updated regarding anything winter weather related in the United States. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.